See if I can record this one. Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody to Cornerstone Bible Church Family Time Second Hour Zoom, August 16th, 2020. We've got a big update for you guys, the pastoral search update, and an answer to our prayers. And you know that, maybe you know, I'm not really big into hype or suspense, but I think it is appropriate to take a moment to say that the Lord has been super gracious to our church. He has answered our prayers in a way that I think has exceeded our expectations. Our elder team couldn't be more thankful to share this news with you. We are genuinely surprised and blessed to be able to, I don't know what the word is, to bring a pastor of this caliber onto our church, to our church team. And yeah, we are announcing a senior pastor that we found. I think once we're done here, and once, especially after you've had a chance to meet him, we are confident that you will totally agree. This church obviously belongs to the Lord, and we hold her with open hands. We've seen the Lord bring our church to the brink of shutting us down or disillusion almost, even almost a decade ago. But I think now we'll look back and we'll see him proving himself to be faithful again in providing a shepherd, a leader, a preacher, a senior pastor that, Lord willing, will set us up for many, many, many years to come. I don't particularly enjoy pastoral search processes, and I'm hoping this may be the last one ever. Well, but we'll see. Trust the word of that, of course. So without any further ado, on behalf of the elders, Francis Orejudos, Hyon Seo, Isaiah Mackler, it gives me great honor to introduce you to CBC's new senior pastor, Joshua Mack. And I'm sure you guys are all like applauding and clapping at home. You know, it's hard to hear that on Zoom. You guys are all muted, but that's okay. So we wanted to introduce you to him and talk about how we got here and our process and all those kinds of things, and what our process is going to be going forward as well. So anyways, Joshua Mack, his name or face may be familiar to you. We did send a missions team to serve with him in South Africa in 2012, and a couple of members of our team, of that team, are still here at our church. Nate Roth and Stephanie, who was previously Chan, now Gonzalez. So you guys will be familiar with Joshua. All right, so let's see here. How did we get here? Senior pastor search process and timeline. Just to remind everybody about how we got to the point where we are today. Pastor John Crick, our last senior pastor, his last sermon was December 3rd, 2017. I had to go back to the records and look. December 3rd, 2017. And we had a send-off service for him and Victoria and the kids on October 3rd, 2018. I think that was his last official Sunday at Cornerstone. And I think he left for North Carolina a couple weeks after that. And in the intervening time, we had a lot of prayer and ongoing discussion about what the next step for our church should be. I think it's appropriate to give a lot of thanks to Pastor Isaiah Mackler, and thanks to the Lord for providing Pastor Isaiah Mackler to our church. And I talked to Isaiah about this on Thursday, but the Lord provided Pastor Isaiah to our church at just the right time. He joined our elder team, our leadership team, in January of 2017. And it was maybe 6 or 7 months later that Pastor John started having some issues and difficulty with preaching. And so Pastor Isaiah kind of jumped right in. In 2017, he preached about 40% of the sermons. We brought him on board thinking that he might preach like 20-25% of the time, but he ended up preaching almost half of the time in that year. And every year since then, it's been going up and up and up. And in fact, this last year, 2020, he's preached 83% of the opportunities. And so we are just so thankful for his ministry, his faithfulness. He's held the pulpit well for all this time, and we're so grateful for that. And we've said it before that it has given us the luxury of not facing that time pressure to bring a pastor on board, a senior pastor on board. And we're so thankful for Isaiah and for Melissa and the girls, of course. And also for other men who've preached. Sam Cogburn, who's on the call here too, obviously has filled the pulpit and done a great job. Ben Winarco, of course, as well. And other people, guest preachers, have held the pulpit for us and ministered to us week in and week out. And we're so grateful and thankful for that. And but really, I think if the Lord hadn't provided Pastor Isaiah, we would have missed our window, in a sense, to bring a pastor like Joshua Mack on board. And so we thank you, Pastor Isaiah, and we praise God for you. So then in September of last year, we decided that we were going to post the position, and we're going to, on the TMS matching website, the PSC stands for Pastoral Search Committee. Our process was to look for a senior pastor with experience, and the specific job description was that we're looking for a senior pastor with between 3 to 10 years of experience. And so we began the process. We received resumes, applications, lots of conversations with men. We listened to a lot of sermons. We, did what you guys would do. We would stalk them on Facebook or social media, Twitter, Instagram, whatever account they have. Try to stalk them, find out as much as possible. And for this pastoral search process, since September, we've received about 36 applications. So it's been a lot of work, but a lot of fun getting to know these men as well. We've had email, phone, video communication, interviews, references, word of mouth, talking to their contacts. We completed background checks, those kinds of things as part of our typical vetting process. All right, and just a couple of, a couple of notes about Pastor Joshua's candidacy. As I mentioned before, we sent a team in conjunction with Grace Church of Orange, we sent a fairly large team to South Africa on a short-term missions trip to minister under him. I mentioned before, Nate Roth and Stephanie Gonzalez were on the team. 2 of my siblings were on the team, and they were involved with Living Hope Church there in Pretoria, South Africa, as well as starting or getting the Mufumuzi baby house, a home, ready to serve as an infant orphanage, if you will. And that's kind of under the umbrella of an organization called One Hope for Africa, which Joshua founded. So that's one of the first pieces of Joshua Mack's candidacy, is our first kind of getting to know him way back in 2012. Even before that, I had taken MABC, Masters of Arts in Biblical Counseling classes under Joshua's father, Wayne, at the Master's College way back in 2003. I met Wayne and Carol Mack, Joshua's parents, back then. Sat under his teaching for a few weeks. Met his sister, Beth, who was coordinating the program at the time. So that's kind of another touch point that we had. And then a few months ago, Rob Provost, who you may know, Rob is a brother in the gospel who's been somebody who's been a mentor to our church. He's preached our church about 1.5 years ago, and really helped us in the area of ministering overseas. I'm not going to say the M word because he doesn't want to be connected to that word. But anyways, Rob Provost had just kind of randomly texted me and said, "Hey, brother, how's it going out there? How are you guys doing with COVID? Any way that I can pray for you?" And I said, yeah, we're still looking for a senior pastor. And he's like, "Oh, I forgot about that. You know what? You should reach out to Joshua Mack." And I was like, "You mean Joshua Mack?" And he said, "Yes, Joshua Mack." And I said, "Like Joshua Mack, South Africa?" And he said, "Yes, Joshua Mack, South Africa." And I said, "I didn't know he was looking to make a move." And Rob says, "And actually, you got to keep it under wraps because nobody knows he's looking to make a move. Or very few people know that he's looking to make a move." And Rob told me, he's like, "You know what? He's fairly far down the road in process with another church. You may want to contact him soon, just to put your name in there, because I think you guys would be a better match, a better fit for one another." And I was like, "Okay, well, great." So before anything, actually, I talked to the elders about that, and they listened to sermons. And before we had a chance to really even ask Joshua to apply for the position, we wanted to make sure that it would be a good fit, or that that there were no red flags, those kinds of things. So then we ended up asking Joshua to apply. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the typical aspects of the candidate vetting process and some of the atypical aspects of the candidate vetting process here as well. Let's see, I think I have a slide for that. So as I said, we did the fairly typical thing. We listened to sermons, we stalked him online. I had a couple of informal meetings with him just to see where he was at in his process of looking for a church. It was all hush-hush, actually, because he hadn't even told his church in South Africa at the time that he was looking to leave. And so it was we wanted to be very delicate in the way that we communicated with him and with other people. And then the elders of our church confirmed that he'd be a good fit, and asked him to formally apply, which he did. And then we went through those regular processes of email, video communication, interviews, checking the references, word of mouth, those kinds of things. But we wanted to highlight 4 factors that may have affected our pastoral search process this time around. This is the 4th formal pastoral search process that I've been a part of as an elder at Cornerstone. And so there's 4 factors that have affected our process. Obviously, number 1 is the worldwide pandemic. It's affected everything, right, for everybody, right? So how can it not affect a pastoral search process? And I think in kind of our normal process, we would ordinarily want to have a pastor come out and visit, meet with us in person, meet with the care group leaders, have dinner with us, meet their family, all those kinds of things. We weren't able to do that so much because of the pandemic. That's the first factor. The second factor is the quality of the candidate. I mean, I think we were very excited that Joshua was available, that he was even mildly interested in our church. So we were really excited about that. And just to be even more specific, I went back to look at, the 4 different pastoral search processes that we've had. And we've had at least 81 applications for pastors over the, has it been 7-8 years that we've done pastoral search processes. 81 candidates or so, and dozens of conversations with other possible candidates. And Joshua is he's in the upper echelon of these men. And so we're really thankful that he'd be interested in coming to our church. Would take a moment to just express appreciation for pastors. Again, we've, interacted with, maybe 36 pastors this year alone. And some of these pastors have been laid off by their churches because of COVID or whatever the situation is. And it is very eye-opening and a great reminder of why I'm not a vocational pastor. I'm a physician, a lay elder, and my job is secure. But these vocational pastors are putting their livelihood, their family's livelihood in the hands of sometimes lay elders like myself. And so it is hard to be a vocational pastor, and these men and their wives and their families, they trust the Lord. And it is just a reminder for us lay people, that the work of a pastor is hard work, and we need to appreciate them. We need to pray for them. We need to give thanks to God for them, and we need to support them and care for them. So anyways, that's the quality of the candidate. Pastor Joshua's fit, I mean, it was fairly quickly, easily, readily apparent for us to see that he'd be a great fit at Cornerstone. He speaks the same language as us. You'll see as Francis goes through his resume and his qualifications that he just checks all the boxes and more. Not only just on paper, but also in person. When you get to know him, he's so humble, he's so gracious, and he would fit so well with our team. And I think the other elders will talk about that briefly. And then the final factor that affected our pastoral search process was Pastor Joshua's timeline. We'll talk a little bit about that more later in the FAQ section of the discussion. But just again, is recognizing God's sovereignty and where we're at, again, with the luxury of having Pastor Isaiah filling the pulpit. When Joshua was interested and available in looking to make a move, the Lord just worked it out perfectly. And we're so thankful to for his sovereignty and for his graciousness in that. We'll say that kind of after doing our due diligence and getting to know Pastor Joshua, our process pretty quickly transitioned from evaluating and vetting to recruiting. And so we kind of went into recruiting mode and to convince Pastor Joshua, even though he was kind of fairly far down the road with another church, hey, we might be a little bit biased, but we think we're a better fit than the other church. And so we made appeals to him, and I think we were able to convince him, along with the Lord, of course, that he would be a great fit for our church, and so he accepted. And so I would say also that given the circumstances with all these 4 things and just this weird world that we live in now, we have decided as elders to bring Pastor Joshua on board as a senior pastor and as an elder when he arrives in the country. We're not going to parade him around or take a vote or anything like that at this point, but we're open to discussion about that further. All right. We want to thank you for your patience with us. We want to thank you for your understanding. We want to thank you for your trust in us as elders to do this process. We know that ultimately you're not really trusting in us as fallible men, but you trust in the Lord. And it is the Lord who loves the church more than we do because he sent his son Christ to die for us. And it seems like the Lord has answered our prayers, and we're so thankful. So at this time, I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to turn it over to Francis. And maybe mute yourself if you're not on mute already. I hear a little bit of feedback right now, so go ahead and mute yourself And Francis is going to go on to the next slide.
All right, you guys can hear me okay? So first off, just, man, I really love having these family times just so that we can see you guys. It's been said much about being not able to meet in person and see you guys, and just having this as an opportunity to see all your faces, even to see your black screens is good enough for me, just to know that you're on and we're all together on the same Zoom, and seeing Sam and Amanda, obviously, and seeing, Gina and everybody here. So just appreciate all you guys, joining in. And obviously with this great news, we're so excited. So many emotions and feelings, with announcing, Pastor Joshua as our senior pastor. A lot of it is excitement. There's thrill of, finally, having someone come in as our senior pastor. Also, there's a measure of relief as well, just for the amount of time that we've spent, as a team, as a church, just praying and hoping for the Lord to bring us a man to fill this vacant role, and just seeing how here we are, August 16, 2020, unbelievable. And we're announcing Joshua Mack, him being brought to us by the Lord, the Cornerstone. So it's just amazing. We talked a lot about the process, and you're probably like, okay, what is it about this guy? Who is this guy? I don't really know Josh Mack. So we're just going to run through quickly his bio. We're going to talk about, his professional experience, professional, right? His ministry experience, and a little bit of his personal bio. So, you see it here, 20 years of senior pastor experience. And he just, as Huey mentioned, he just hits on all the items and more that we've been praying about. We really did pray for a man who had senior pastor experience, who had years of leadership in the pulpit. And, we see that with Joshua, in Pretoria, founding and leading and teaching there at Living Hope Bible Church, or Living Hope Church plant 2007. And now they're at a place where they're planting other churches. And I know one of the questions you might ask, and we're going to talk about this later, is, if he's a missionary and he's planted a church, why would he want to come back? Well, the reality is that he's completed the mission. He's raised up 5 elders, 5 deacons, and the church has been planted. It's maturing, it's growing, and they have a leadership team in place that has proven over time now ready, for Joshua to depart, and for his replacement, to come in and lead. So, so Joshua has been leading there, and been doing that since 2007. Been the senior pastor since 2013. Also, Joshua brings experience in teaching. He's an instructor at the Strengthening Ministries Training Institute that's been there since 2010. And that institute really focuses on biblical counseling, and so that's what he does: training, teaching, equipping pastors. In the midst of planning a church and leading a church, he teaches at the institute there. And then also in 2010, they founded One Hope for Africa, an NGO, a nonprofit organization that focuses on orphan ministry, those vulnerable. And part of that is founding, and Huey mentioned this earlier, the Mufumuzi Baby Home, which is a place for supporting orphans and abandoned babies. So, 2010, a busy guy, right? Planning, senior pastor for Living Hope, teaching at the Training Institute, founding One Hope for Africa, and the NGO, and the Baby Home, and then also the founder and instructor of the African Bible Training Center since 2015. And that ministry is dedicated to working with churches in Bible training. Just from his experience here, just from the resume, so to speak, we see somebody who is high capacity, high ability, in training, teaching, shepherding. Obviously those are all the things that we've been praying for and looking for in a man. And then also, obviously checks the boxes as it relates to his education, has all the degrees and credentials, most recently with his DMin from Southern in 2007. So I think, what we see here is just a man with tremendous experience in teaching, training, counseling, not just doing these things, but in leadership in these areas. So in many ways, the total package on on paper and in person and on person, however we want to call it. So, you know, and not only that, just as a strong preacher, he's been asked to speak internationally in churches, conferences around the world, in Chile, Albania, Germany, the Philippines, Madagascar, and just many other countries. And I think that we've talked to him over time. When he comes here too, he'll still be asked to speak, and we're going to have to integrate that into his scope as he's the senior pastor here at Cornerstone. But it's just I think what we're trying to say is that he has been recognized as a strong preacher and teacher, and even most recently, or at one of the most recent GMI conferences, chosen as one of the 5 plenary speakers. And that's not something that he told us. He didn't share that with us, voluntarily. But we found that from our own information gathering ourselves. So Josh has just been recognized as a gifted teacher and preacher, also with a biblical counseling background, which our church loves. We see that as a great fit. Many of you independently, we know that have shown interest in being trained, and so definitely we see something here is where Joshua can fit. And so so that's the academic, professional, the ministry experience. But for us, as we're getting to know Joshua, we were able to see how his passions and his heart really fit ours, it complemented ours. Clearly his heart for missions. And I think, and there's going to be stories we're going to tell about how we got to know Joshua, but there was one, in exchange that we had, particularly with Hyon, an exchange of emails where we're describing our heart for missions, our vision for missions, and describing how, just, sending, Sam and Amanda off, and just really seeing that's where the Lord really knit our hearts together, just over a 2-day period, just seeing over email, just seeing the Lord bringing us together, and just having that desire and that love for missions and wanting to be that a priority here at Cornerstone and for where Joshua was to go next. And then also just a heart for adoption and mercy ministry. We know that many of you have been and are active in fostering and adopting children or supporting ministries that focus on mercy ministry. And so clearly, and you'll see, the Macks, share this passion. Founding the NGO and starting the baby home. And so, that's something that, of course, they want to continue in fostering that passion here in Orange County in the States, as the Lord allows. So just, amazing how, the Lord would, bring a person with those same passions, that same heart to us. And then just as, just answering the question as far as, how do we know that this guy is the guy? How do we know that, the Lord wants Joshua to come to us is the right fit? And just in our own, I would say, in our own interactions, on our own exchanges, I think you'll find out for yourselves eventually, but, just a super humble guy, wrote a book on humility. You'll see that in a couple of slides, super passionate for the gospel ministry. And again, when you talk to him, you'll know, it'll come through. Just for us, he's in South Africa, we're in Orange County, but just comes through right across, in the Zoom, just a friendly, relational guy, unassuming, winsome, approachable. For Stephanie and Nate, spend time with them in South Africa. They could tell you, just talking to him over the Zoom, just seeing his smile, the whole time, is just so super gracious. It's one of those guys like John Crick, where, you meet him and you feel like you've known him your whole life, so, and as it relates to, our church and our elder team, one thing that we saw that I personally was, appreciated observing is that even though he's the senior, we talked about how we would work together and how we collectively, really value a team-based approach, to leading and eldering. And that's the way he operates within his own leadership team. And so just seeing that right away, that's something that's, we valued and we appreciate together. But we prize that. And just another way of the Lord showing us that, he's the right fit for us. And just, there's just so many things. A couple others, I really appreciate his character, his integrity. Huey mentioned that, he was talking to another church when we first talked to him, and he actually never posted his resume anywhere. I mean, just, through channels, talking to guys like Rob Provost, sharing that he's available. And he mentioned that, he was in this process with another church, and, he's never applied for a job before. I mean, he's a missionary. He plants churches. You don't apply for jobs for that. So this is his first time. And many of us, we've applied for jobs, and we know what it's like. We apply, we talk to folks, and if we don't like it, we drop out, all good. But for Josh, he was telling us about the process and how, he was engaging in conversations, with the other church. And he just felt, that, he wanted to stick with their process and, just go through the process they had set out. And it was just more about his integrity and just being a man of his word. And for us, we're like, hey, we're on the other side. We've been, told no quickly right away. We've had guys, not even tell us no and drop out. It's all good. But for him, it's like, no, that's just, it doesn't feel right. I want to pray about it. I want to let the Lord lead me. And, it just shows, to me, having character, having integrity, and maintaining the relationships, with the people, that he meets along the way. So just really appreciated that about him. And just one last thing I want to say, and I know that, Hyon and Isaiah and Huey could say a few other things too, but I know over the years, we've talked about, Cornerstone, and it's perfect. It's perfect that Isaiah was talking about this today, just as far as Cornerstone being in Orange County. And, we're a group here that has, we're a church that has means. We're a church, that is rich. And, we're a church that's challenged with, living in this Cornerstone country club, so to speak. And, one thing that we see from Joshua, just by his resume, his experience, is that we know that he'll push us in areas of being comfortable, push us in areas of evangelism, and, areas that we really need to grow and improve in. And so in a very good and godly way, he will make us uncomfortable. And I'm really expecting that. I'm hoping for that. And he will use God's word to convict us as we pray for the Holy Spirit to do, through the word. So I'm just really looking forward to that. And I think that as you see his resume, as you see, his blog, his website, you see his YouTube sermons, you'll see that as well. And you'll look forward to him coming and just ministering with us. So a couple other things. So here's his picture, his family, and Marta. We're going to get to a couple other pictures in a little bit. But, I talked about his ministry resume. I got to talk about now his personal resume. Joshua is 46 years young, married to Marta, 24 years, Marta, his wife. And yes, that's not a typo. They have 9 children, ages 7 to 20 years old, and 9 and 6 biological, 3 adopted, 2 have special needs. And that we'll see, later on we talk about the FAQ, that being a part of the reason why he's coming over to the States, giving attention to his children with special needs. But they do have 9. We're going to show pics of all of them in a bit. And then also, if you know Josh Mack, you know that he's also the son of Wayne Mack. And it may sound familiar to many of you, especially because, Wayne Mack is known in biblical counseling circles, former professor at TMS and elder at Grace Church. I was ministered very early in my marriage by Wayne Mack, and I'm sure many of you have read his book, A Strengthening in Marriage. Now the exact name is failing me, but there's a book that we were very encouraged to read together, Jennifer and I, when we first got married. So there's many other books that Wayne Mack has written. And so just by way of giving you more a background about Josh, he's the son of Wayne Mack. Grew up in Pennsylvania. So, most of us are here homegrown in California, but I know that Mr. Tom Furco, that might resonate with you, having the East Coast background there. And then for Josh, just many, books that he's written. Again, I mentioned previously that he wrote a book on humility. You see some other titles here, and that, you'll go on Amazon, you'll look up his name, and you'll see the other books that you can check out that he's written. So much to say, so much more to say about Josh. We're going to show you a quick video and photos of the family. I'm sure that Hyon, Isaiah, Huey, anything that you want to add as far as Joshua and his fit at Cornerstone, just to what we've talked about here.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
All right, I'll just say a few quick thoughts. I guess, when we first looked up Josh Mack, his impressive list of credentials, as well as, just accomplishments, and he's obviously gifted in those things. But when we look for a senior pastor, I think the first criteria that I feel like is important is just his character. And when we look at on a piece of paper all his resume and his stuff, you can't tell. But what was very obvious from the first time we met him through Zoom was that he's a humble man, that he cares for people. He's not an academia type of person. He's humble. He loves to pastor. He loves people. And I think foremost, that is more important than any credentials. And then just the other thing that stood out to me was just the fruit of his ministry. And the fact that he's been able to plant a church in Pennsylvania before he went to South Africa. And to be able to plant a church in South Africa in a mission field among the poor, and to have that church flourish and be able to be independent and and still growing. And he loves that church, and he's sad to leave that church. So I think those two things just stood out to me. And I feel like he is the best pastoral candidate we've had, and he's the one that God's sovereign plan allowed us to have. So I'm so thankful, and he is an answered prayer, I believe, for us.
Yeah, I think I'll take the opportunity to chime in here. So super excited about Joshua. The conversations with him have been, and I could repeat what the guys have said, just very humble. He's very encouraging. He's a great listener. He asks good questions. It is really just a blessing to spend time with him. And I think that is something you are all going to get to see. He's eager to meet you. He wants me to. He wants us to pass out his email address as soon as possible. He's just a real a lover of people, and I think that is great. He's a good Bible teacher. He loves reading Puritans, which is always exciting to me. You've got a lot in common in a sense. If you enjoy Puritans, then he does too. But really, I think you could add that there's a lot of people like that. Right? There's a lot of humble people. There's a lot of good listeners. There's a lot of people who planted churches. There's a lot of Bible teachers. And one of the things that I really like about Joshua is that I'm confident by God's grace, is going to be able to lead our church. And as we look about what we want to do in the future, we want to be a church that disciples. And we all want to be involved fulfilling the Great Commission in our life. And we want to be disciplers. We want to train those who are going to disciple. Really don't want anyone to be left on the outskirts, not discipling. And so whatever ministry you're serving, we want everyone to be passing that on. We want to be disciplers, and we want to be people who are zealous about obeying Jesus Christ. And I think that's something that really stands out about Joshua's life. I think you can say there's a lot of humble people, a lot of people who love people, but how many people do you know that just the first thing you say about them is, he's a follower of Christ. He obeys Jesus. And like that is one of the takeaways in the small portion amount of time that I've gotten with him. And yet it doesn't, I think he's gonna be someone who will say hard things, but he's so gracious and so kind that I think he'll take time to say them to us. I think that there's gonna be lots of opportunities to stretch ourselves. I think Francis was sharing some of that, and yet he hasn't come with this big vision of we're gonna start this and we're gonna do this. It is gonna be about us learning to follow Christ. One of the girls is reading is memorizing from Philippians 4, how Paul says, the things that you have learned and received and seen and heard from me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. And I really think that Joshua is that kind of guy. I think that he's the kind of guy, while not expecting all of us to be a cookie cutter, I think he's the kind of guy who we're going to be able to follow and say, hey, I've learned from him and I've received from him, and I've seen these things and heard these things, and I'm going to go do them. And I was blessed to be thinking about the message I gave from Hebrews on the 20th anniversary of Cornerstone, and just praying, that our church would be a church where kids would grow up wanting to be missionaries. I think by God's grace, bringing in a missionary to be our teaching pastor is going to be a great way to be accomplishing that. And God may not send all of them. We probably can't afford all of them to go, but I want all of them to be kind of like that is their default. Well, I want to be a missionary, and I think that Joshua will help us with a vision. We want to be a church that is discipling, and you all know that I love you. There are a lot of there's a lot of maturity among you, but we need to find the younger saints for you all to be discipling. And I think he's going to help us. He's going to push us. I think that there will be a better evangelizing church so that you all can pass the maturity that God has given you as you've endured and gone through trials, and be able to pass that on to others. And I prayed about being a church where missionaries like Sam and Amanda can come back when they're ready to leave the field, and be a welcoming church that hasn't lost its biblical foundation, and is still being zealous about fulfilling the Great Commission. Well, what better way to ensure that than to have Joshua leading us? So really, it's kind of funny when I thought about that message in February of 19. I don't think I would have ever seen this happening. So I'm super excited. I've had the chance for a one-on-one with Joshua. He's asking great questions, and I think that he's going to be slow and tempered, but also the firecracker we need. So looking forward to getting to know him more, and eager for all of you to meet him. Thanks.
All right, thanks you guys. So now what we're going to do is we're going to transition to just kind of introducing you to his family. So I got a couple of slides and pictures and a video, actually, a couple of videos from the Mack family. So let's see if this will work here. All right, so this is Pastor Joshua and Marta, and you'll see the kids' names here. I'm going to show the video, and maybe Francis, give me a thumbs up if you can hear the audio, okay? Here we go.
I'm Josh, and this is Marta.
And these are our kids.
I'm McKenna.
Hi, I'm Cambria.
I'm Caitlin.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Zanelli.
I'm Bailey.
I'm Lincoln.
I'm Kennedy. I'm Levi.
All right, so that's all 9 of the kids, and I got another diagram here so to try to keep them straight. There's going to be a quiz at the end of this Zoom, quizzing you about which kid is which, actually. So let's see.
I'm Josh.
Sorry, move on to the next one here. So this is Josh and Marta. They're hiking. They like to hike and be outdoors. And this is their kids, all 9 of them. You see Mufumuzi here on the, at least my screen left. He goes by Muzi. He's 16. Levi's the youngest. He's sitting on top of McKenna. Apparently they take this picture every Christmas, every year for the last 10 years. They've taken the same picture. Presumably Levi wasn't there for that first one. But then there's McKenna. McKenna is, she did a year of school at the Master's College. She's currently actually doing school through Arizona State University online in conjunction with Starbucks. They have some kind of scholarship program. There's Bailey sitting on top of Zanelli. It's Zanelli. I thought it was Zanel for a while, but it actually is pronounced Zanelli. And then Kennedy and Caitlin. Caitlin plays the piano for their church there in Pretoria. Lincoln is 11 and Cambria is 19. Sometimes she goes by the name Cam, so that'll remind you about how to pronounce it, because I was pronouncing it Cambria, but it's actually Cambria. So if you remember Cam, that might be helpful. So we'll send this slide out to you. Actually, if any of the Cornerstone CBC email moderators can take a look at their email, we had scheduled a link to this slideshow to be sent out to the members, so you can approve that, and that'll go out. Pastor Joshua with Marta and Kennedy and Levi. Pastor Joshua leading the way. And another picture with their names here, so you guys can learn and match the names and faces together. And the Mack family. And one of the reasons why, and we'll talk some more about that, one of the reasons why I think Cornerstone was so attractive to them, while we were a good fit for them, you heard about why we think he's a good fit for us, but is kind of multicultural, multi-ethnic church that we're growing in. And the other church that they were looking at was probably not quite as multi-ethnic. And so I think that was one of the reasons that made our church so attractive to them. All right, and here is a video from Pastor Joshua, a greeting to Cornerstone.
Hello, I'm Joshua Mack, and I wanted to record a quick greeting to the church there at Cornerstone. I'm so thankful to be a Christian. It's amazing that God has saved me and is changing me. And I'm also very thankful to be a husband to my sweet wife, Marta, and the father to a lot of kids. And I'm also extremely, extremely grateful to be a pastor, that he's allowed me this privilege of pastoring his church. I love preaching the word of God. I love his word, and I love sharing the gospel and being able to pray for his people and with his people. And I am really looking forward to getting to know you in the months ahead. We are so thankful that he is allowing us to partner with Cornerstone. And we've already begun praying for you, and would ask that you would be praying for us as well. We just want to be fruitful, we want to be faithful, and we want to be helpful. And we know that we can't do any of that apart from Jesus Christ's work in and through us. And so we would ask that you would pray for us as we pray for you. And we want you to know that we are really excited about the church there at Cornerstone, and we are very excited about getting to know you. We are family, and we can't wait to meet our brothers and sisters and get to know each and every one of you better. And we are looking forward to the ways that God is going to use you in our lives, and praying that he will use us in your lives as well, so that we can really partner together. We serve a great Savior. He's revealed to us this incredible, amazing gospel. We have this awesome responsibility. We are extremely privileged to have the gospel, but with that privilege comes this great responsibility. We have the truth, and we want to be part of a church that really proclaims that truth and shows the love of Christ to a lost and dying world. And so, as you can tell, we are excited about the future and really looking forward to getting to know you.
All right, that's Pastor Joshua, and he is, like as he said, very excited. Sometimes he'll send me like 3 or 4 emails a day asking questions and ideas and thoughts and those kinds of things. And as soon as we kind of agreed that he would be the senior pastor, he asked me right away, like, can you give me a roster of all the members so that Marta and I can begin praying for them by name? And so he's been praying for you guys for a couple of weeks now. Just know that he's very excited, and we're looking forward to having him. All right, let's see if we can click to the next slide. Sorry. So this is a slide with a number of links. And again, I'll send that email out to the church momentarily. And you will have access to his resume. You'll have access to their Living Hope Church in Pretoria, Republic of South Africa. There are a few sermons that we wanted to highlight for you. There's also a sermon audio archive of just dozens and dozens and dozens of sermons there. He has a YouTube channel. He has a blog. He has a Twitter. I would encourage you to take a look at the big ministry update link there. It answers the question, which we'll talk about in a second, but why are they coming back to the United States? And there's the Amazon author's website also with some of his publications. All right, so you'll have the opportunity to click on those links shortly. So just a few FAQs. Why are the Macks coming back to the United States? I think Francis already mentioned it already, in a sense that missionaries' job is to go and to evangelize, plant a church, build the church up. And then the missionary's role is to hand that church over to a national in that nation to lead and guide the church. And so that's what Pastor Joshua has done. That church that is planted is maturing. It's a church that's already beginning to plant its own churches. He's got a leadership team that he's equipped and trained up and raised up, 5 elders in place, along with his replacement who's also there. And so he's completed the mission in a sense. There's a financial aspect of things too. That church there, Living Hope, Joshua feels like probably can't support him and his family as an American citizen living in a foreign country with 9 kids. That church probably can't support him, and they're not supporting him. He's being supported as a missionary. But that church can support Pastor Andre DeWitt, who is Joshua's replacement that he's trained up. And so it's a healthy transition, he thinks, so people can use the resources appropriately. Another reason is that he has 2 of his oldest daughters, McKenna and Cambria. They are here in the United States. They live in LA, and they're going to school here. And I think there is a desire for them to be together. I think he's, just loves them, of course, wants to be with them, feels the distance of being on the other side of the world, and wants to be together with them. And as mentioned before, he does have 2 kids with special needs, and he's mentioned that in South Africa, there are 0 resources for children with special needs. But in the United States here, and especially in California, there are lots of resources. And so he's looking forward to getting some help in caring for his kids with special needs. Question number 2 is, what is the timeline for the transition? They are shooting to be here in the United States around December. It takes a couple of months to, he's going to get all of his stuff packed up, put on in shipping containers and ship those to the United States. It's going to take a couple of months for those things to get here. That's their goal. So they're praying about that and shooting to be here sometime in December. We'll get to prayer requests in a second because it's related to prayer requests. Third question here is, soon we'll have 3 full-time ministers on staff. What's the division of labor going to be? The Lord has blessed us through this season. We've been looking for a replacement for Sam, in a sense, for going on 3 years, it seems like. And we're so blessed to have Clifton. You guys saw Clifton in the beginning of service today, so we're excited to see him there. Good job, Clifton. And he's going to be preaching actually in a couple of weeks too. Clifton will be preaching at the end of August for service. But bringing Pastor Clifton on board, bringing Pastor Joshua on board, and having Pastor Isaiah as a kind of a full complement of vocational pastors. We're so glad to finally, in a sense, kind of complete the team, if you will, along with all the rest of us, volunteer, lay ministers, elders and non-elders alike, all of us in our church serving the Lord together. What's the division of labor going to be? We have no idea. I think it's going to be a discussion, of course, about using each man according to their gifts, where the needs are, what the opportunities are, and we'll sit down together as an elder team and figure those things out. But we're excited to have kind of a full complement of people. We feel like, Pastor Jay has done a remarkable job of standing in there and holding everything together, but we want to give him help, and help is on the way. And so we're really thankful for that. All right. We're going to have a time for Q&A a little bit afterwards, but I wanted to share some of the Mack's prayer requests. He mentioned that he's been praying for you guys, and we're going to send him a list of our prayer requests as well. Please pray that our adoptions would be finalized so we can leave the country. Their adoptions are finalized in country, but in order to leave, to abscond with 3 citizens of the Republic of South Africa, they need an extra level of finalization of that adoption. So they're praying through that, working through that. Their social worker is pretty confident that can be done fairly quickly, but obviously want to submit that to the Lord in prayer, that their adoptions will be finalized so they can leave the country. Pray that God would help us be faithful these last few months here in South Africa, and bless and strengthen the leadership of the church here as we transition back. So the church there does know They do know now that Joshua is leaving. He sent that update, so it's public knowledge. They don't know yet about Cornerstone Bible Church, so maybe don't go on tweeting it or posting on Instagram so much until Joshua's had a chance to let his church there know. But they do know that he's leaving. They do know that that's the plan, that there's a transition there, and they've been working through that already, but they don't know about Cornerstone Bible Church just yet. Praise, houses aren't really selling well there, but they do own their house there. They've sold it by God's grace, and it's actually going to be transformed into a baby home number 2. We are thankful for our daughters in the States are doing well, but it's getting long now. And so we are praying that God will give them joy these last couple of months that we are apart, and for their transition down to Orange County. And so our fledgling college ministry is already going to reach out to McKenna and Cambria, and reach out to them and see what we can do to just to touch base and see how we can serve them, and maybe have them come down and tour the area and those kinds of things. There's a chance that Joshua and Marta might come out to visit us in the fall, looking for a place to live. Shout out to Will Lau for that. But they want to make sure they'll be able to get back into their country, into South Africa, before they leave. So that's currently a minor obstacle that they're praying about. Last set of prayer requests. We are getting excited about the move and really want to live all out for Christ there in OC. We haven't lived in the States for a while. Again, they haven't been here since 13, 14 years. So they didn't even have all their kids when they left the United States here. So we're just depending on God to help us to be wise and to know how to live on mission for him there. Might mention Hugo, if you have thoughts about what kind of car they should get to transport their kids all around. They need a Class B license, whatever the case may be, maybe drop me a line, let me know, because the Macks haven't figured that out over here in the States yet. Number 6, that our children will have a joyful move as well and develop good friendships there at the church. We connected with Rodney Anderson, who's one of the directors at Grace Ministries International, and just to kind of ask him, like, we've had missionaries come back from furlough before, but we've never had a missionary, long-term missionary, come back for good to the United States. And so we reached out to Grace Ministries International, and they gave us a whole folder of information about how to help with that transition, both logistically and also spiritually. Recall that some of their kids have never been here in the United States. They never visited. They don't have any friends here. They don't know anybody here. They're going to be leaving their friends in Pretoria. And so we just really want to love on the Macks, their families from top to bottom, and care for them. Number 7, we are super excited about serving Jesus at Cornerstone Bible Church, and we're praying God will enable us to be as faithful as servants and as helpful to you all as we possibly can be. And then just a last slide here. We're so grateful that you would pray for us. We printed out the members list and have begun to pray for you as well. Please let the church know we would love to get to know them and pray for them in the days ahead, and we are happy if they want to get in touch. There's also a line that says, please send them our email address so they can all get in touch with us. But we redacted that just so you guys don't all bombard him just yet. But at the right time, we will let you get in touch with him. We'll set up some Zooms where he can interact with you, with the care group leaders, and then with the rest of the church too, just to get to know one another. It's kind of neat that this technology has allowed us to do that. And Joshua joined us for our last elders meeting on Thursday. He wants to join our elders meetings as much as possible from now until he gets here. And so our technology is allowing us to do that. So we're really thankful for that. All right. And just the last slide here is really just to the church. Thank you for your faithful prayers. This is an answer to prayer, and praise and thanks to God for answering our prayers and exceeding our expectations. So thanks for sitting through that. Feel free if you need to sign off. You should have received the email by now, hopefully with all the links. But we'll also hang out if you guys have questions, thoughts. We want to field those to the degree that we're able to. So go ahead and unmute yourself, and I will stop the recording and the slideshow.